and watching him go through the wall, and I was very excited for this big conflict. And I can't help but feel the fact that it comes season 8, episode 3, that it just feels like the undercard for the main event that is the confrontation with Cersei at King's Landing. I thought the White Walkers and the Night King was always going to be the main event. I thought this was what the show was building towards, and the fact that this conflict was resolved in one episode, credit the longest episode we've had in Game of Thrones, I felt pretty underwhelmed, because the Night King, I thought, for as much as they've built him up and as strong as they've built him up, we even see in this episode halfway through, he's unfazed by flames, and he's killed so many people, he's raised so many people. We don't get a single line of dialogue, and it just kind of feels like, oh, that's it. Like, now they're going to go to King's Landing and demand the throne from Cersei, even though, this is someone that they've been teasing for so long. And we see, I remember Samwell Tarly, he is hiding, and all the White Walkers march past him, and we get that glance that the Night King or one of the White Walkers gives him, and we were so excited to finally see this conflict come to a head, and I just can't help but feel it feels like the undercard. Like, it feels like, when you're watching a boxing match and everyone's clamoring for the main event, when McGregor Mayweather was happening, I think that's the last boxing match I watched live, all the, matches that came beforehand, when you look back at it, no one cares about the matches that came beforehand, and it just kind of feels like this Night King conflict wasn't given proper justice. I don't have a problem with Arya killing the Night King. I just have a problem with the Night King being killed, period. I think Arya killing the Night King definitely makes sense in terms of story, because, we build with Arya being trained for so long, and kind of her abandoning her humanity, a girl knows no name, has no face or whatever, and eventually kind of getting that back, but having that balance of humanity and assassin. And so I don't have a problem with her killing the Night King, but I just feel like the Night King should have been given more time. All the theories going into this season, is the Night King the Mad King resurrected? Is the Night King Bran? What's the connection with Bran and the Night King? Why are they always so interlinked? Why is the Night King, sentient when Bran travels to the past? Like, how does he know he's there? I just really wish we got some answers to that, because obviously a lot of people will say, you don't need answers to everything, and some stuff is better left off as a mystery. But I felt, we've been building towards this for so long. Why not give us some answers? Why not clue us in on the Night King? This guy we've been building towards for 8 seasons, 7 full seasons and half of an 8th, he doesn't get a single line of dialogue. The one expression of emotion he shows is when he smirks after being attempted to be burned alive. So I just wish we got more with the Night King. The battle itself was very cool, but I still find Hardhome a better battle, because this one, I get that it's realistic to a T. It's not, even though we have dragons in this world and characters that can be resurrected and the Lord's Light and all that, it was very hard to see. I mean, that's one thing a lot of people complained about, that, the battle was hard to see because it was nighttime, it was the winter, and that was even a visual cue from Dany and Jon Snow, as they couldn't, take the dragons to burn some of the White Walkers because they couldn't see. So I wish that, the lighting was a little better, because we've seen in past battles, even when they are at night, just based on the setting, we can see it a little better. And yeah, overall, good episode. I just don't know where the season is going now, and I am excited for them to confront Cersei in King's Landing, and we'll probably have a big battle there, and I think that's where we will get the Clegane Bowl. I think it's definitely happening. The Hound versus the Mountain in what's going to be one of the coolest confrontations, in this show as a whole. But we'll see. When I look back on this season, I'll definitely do a season recap at some point. I'm going to do recap episodes for every episode going forward, so we will have another Game of Thrones, what will we call it? Talking Thrones or Westeros Weekly or something like that. We'll do that again next Monday and for the next 3 Mondays as the season gets wrapped up. But yeah, all I can really say at this point in the season, where do we go from here? When the season wraps up, I'm sure that I will have my answers, obviously, and I will know, okay, the conflict with Cersei definitely was better. And I know Game of Thrones at the end of the day is more about the politics than it is about the battles. But if we're going to end this season with just a confrontation at King's Landing and not a battle like we saw here, it just feels a bit overwhelming. I feel like, they blew their load too early in terms of they touted this battle as the big battle, 82 minutes, 90 hours to film the battle scene, 11 weeks of shooting, poured all the budget plus even more into this episode. If this is the main event in terms of spectacle from the season, why wasn't that put in the main event place at the end of the season? Why was that given to us in the middle of the season? How are these next 3 episodes going to capitalize on this battle? How are we going to go forward with what we got in this episode? I'm sure there's going to be a confrontation, but in terms of what they've told us, in terms of how big this Battle of Winterfell was leading up to it, it kind of feels like we're just going to get some more conversations in episodes 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, only time will tell. We will see what happens next week when Cersei and everyone is in King's Landing is confronted by the Starks and Jaime and Tyrion and everyone else that's alive that made it out of this alive. Another thing I guess that I would complain about is I feel like not enough people died. I don't mean to sound morbid there, but I'm saying that the people that died kind of felt like it was expected of them to die. I wanted more shocking deaths. And even though I predicted Grey Worm and Jaime would perish, and they didn't, that was a nice shock, I guess. But Beric, it seemed like his arc was kind of wrapped up. We had already known that this was his last life. He couldn't be brought back to life anymore. Ed, he was an integral part for the Night's Watch, but after that, what's he really going to do beyond here? Jorah, after he was cured from grayscale, he kind of felt like he was, on the back burner. His life was probably going to end soon, even though he got one of the better moments of Daenerys really crying over his death and realizing how much that he meant to her. And obviously he's not going to be the hand to the throne anymore, because it looks like Tyrion's going to hold on to that title for a while more. Lyanna, I guess that was one of the more heart-wrenching deaths, because I didn't really expect that as much, because, I thought with all the powerful female characters we have in the show, I thought they were going to keep most of them alive with Sansa and Daenerys and Cersei, and I thought maybe having Lyanna Mormont confront Cersei at King's Landing along with everyone else would have been a very cool scene to have. So that was kind of surprising. Melisandre, her appearance in the episode was a shock regardless, and it kind of did feel like her arc was wrapped up, as well as Theon. As soon as he offered to protect Bran, that he was done, and his arc had been wrapped up. A lot of people said he was going to survive due to the fact of his reunion with Sansa and possibly the chance of them getting married, but it felt like his whole, going from being Robb Stark's #1 fan to trying to take Winterfell to getting tortured by Ramsay Bolton and having his whole mind kind of taken away. As we hear an ambulance in the background, I'm not sure if that's audible, probably rushing to save Beric or Jorah or whatnot. Regardless, this episode was fun overall. I wish that the lighting was better, if I'm going to get into a little visual criticisms, I guess. And I do wish that the Night King conflict was stretched out a little bit more rather than one episode. I guess if this episode happened in Season 7, I'm going to double check, but I believe it had 7 episodes. But if this conflict was wrapped up in Season 7, Season 7 had 7 episodes. So my kind of thoughts is that if we had these 1, 2, 3 episodes happen in Season 7, and we had a full-length season with Season 7, make it 10 episodes like all the past 6 seasons have been, would that not have been a better way to wrap up the White Walker saga than have it happen in the middle of Season 8? Now, I get that Season 8, would that reduce Season 8 to only 3 episodes, or could they possibly stretch out these next 3 episodes over the course of 5 to make it feel like an actual full season? I don't know, but I just feel like we had a 1.5-year break between Season 7 and Season 8. We've been waiting for the Night King for so long. I'm kind of exhausting this, but I just want to say it one last time before we roll credits. I just feel like the Night King wasn't given proper justice for all the politics that happens in Game of Thrones, with all the pridefulness and everyone, oh, I won't help you because you're associated with person X who killed my cousin's dad's fish, his brother's dog's house or whatever. All the pridefulness and all the stubbornness and everything we get. The Night King was the no nonsense, no bullshit, no lines whatsoever. You're allied to me. You have allegiance to me if you are dead. Simple as that. I was looking forward to seeing him take out all the prideful people in Game of Thrones. Did I want him to sit on the throne? Admittedly, yes. I thought that would have been a very cool way to wrap up the show, but in terms of logistics, it probably wouldn't make sense. But I would have liked to see maybe have him lose the battle but not lose his life and eventually move on to King's Landing. Imagine how cool it would be to have the Lannisters forced to fight alongside the Starks in terms of the whole Lannisters and Cersei and Euron Greyjoy in order to snuff out this final threat, or even have them just hide or something, have them defeat them in King's Landing, and then have, Jon Snow and Daenerys confront Cersei and, you didn't help whatsoever, you don't deserve the throne. Jaime or Tyrion kills her, and that's how the show wraps up. So, all in all, my final thoughts before we roll credits, I would have liked to see this White Walker saga extend at least one more episode, see them get to King's Landing, have them kind of, cornered in terms of people at King's Landing on one side with everyone from Winterfell chasing after them on the other side. Felt like that would have been a cool way to continue with the season and wrap up that White Walker saga. Regardless, that's going to be just about the time we have to talk Game of Thrones on this episode, and it is now time to roll credits. All right, thank you guys so much for joining me on today's show. It was a blast talking all things Game of Thrones. I know I gave the recap for about a half hour and then my thoughts for about 15 minutes, but I felt a lot happened in this episode, and it's kind of necessary to recap it all and kind of make sure everyone's in the loop in terms of what went down, even though everyone who's listening definitely saw it because this was a spoiler-filled episode. As you should know, I can't really talk about this episode without talking spoilers. It was a fun episode regardless, one of the top episodes when we go back and revisit Game of Thrones as a series, as a whole, as a complete series. It's going to be one of those episodes that people rant and rave about for a long time. I don't think it stacks up as well against Hardhome or against Battle of the Bastards, but it's definitely in that top 5 of battles that people will look back on and say, man, this show was something special with how much they poured into the individual battles. With that being said, you can follow me on Instagram at LiamCrowley714. I put on my Instagram story promos for the weekly episodes all the time when they are released, so you can expect this week definitely a news episode come Wednesday, and definitely an Avengers Endgame rant, not a rant, excuse me, just a rave, a gush. That movie was everything to me, and I will get that out at some point later this week, maybe as soon as tomorrow. You can also follow me on Twitter at Liam T. Crowley. I also put links to the shows on my Twitter. It's on iTunes and Spreaker. Make sure you're downloading the episodes. It helps the show. We're very close to 1,000 downloads, and when we hit that, we're going to do a giveaway of some sort. So make sure you download the episodes from Spreaker or from iTunes, wherever you are listening. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at BlockBreakPod. Tweet or DM your questions, comments, concerns, any movie, any TV show you want to be covered on this show, any topic. We will definitely get around to covering it. You just got to make sure you alert us of what you want covered on that on an upcoming show. With that being said, I've been Liam Crowley. Thank you so much for joining me on a special Game of Thrones edition of Blockbuster Breakdown, and I will see you very soon.